This is a video to accompany Mei the Cobra, created for the start of the Lunar New Year of the snake. So what I'm going to show you here is actually the finishing details on the sewing up. If you're actually tackling this pattern for the first time, what is very, very unique about it is the fact that it uses short row shaping in order for it to spiral. So this isn't just me taking a straight shape and actually then wrapping it round in a spiral. What you're doing is you're doing short row shaping, and what that means is you're working effectively half of the round and then back again on the outside of this circle, and that causes it to then coil up. So if that's what you want to do, the best video that I can recommend is actually the Invisible Rose video or the Bow the Dragon video. So go and have a look at that one if it's the actual crocheting that you want to look at. This is going to be more about the final finishing and sewing up. So what I've got here, and before I actually take this stitch marker out, I just want to show you, because it is such a unique piece and shape that I don't get to show off the stitch marking very often. But this is what your stitch marker does as it goes round in this coil. As you can see there, it tracks and it absolutely spirals round the 360 with you when you're putting it together. So you're crocheting it all in one piece like that. And then when it gets to the head, I think the most important thing that people wanted to see is whether it is the top or the bottom of the head. This curve here, that's the underneath of the head, so the eyes are going to go in the top. So what I'm going to do first is remove all my stitch markers. Now you've seen where they are. I'm going to take all of those out like that. And in my original, what I've used is actually cat safety eyes, so that you've got that elongated shape in the centre of the safety eyes. Obviously, you can choose to finish them off with safety eyes, but this time around, I'm actually just going to sew them as I would do traditionally. But before I do that, what I just want to show you is, I think, where you want to be putting these. So if you are adding your safety eyes in, you want to be adding your safety eyes around here, and I'll just give you a bit of a guide so that you can really count that backwards. So if you're thinking about where to put those safety eyes in, I'm going to come one up actually. Use your sewing up needle like that just to position them before you obviously close the end, and look at the front of your snake's face. You've got that curve underneath, and I would be putting them in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So about 6 stitches apart like that, and from the front 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 9 rounds back from the front would be where I would be putting the safety eyes. So if you're going for safety eyes, put them in now before you close the front up. But I'm actually going to be using embroidered eyes this time round. So I'm going to sew those on first, and then I'm going to put the hood over the top in the same way that you would if you were using your safety eyes. So sew those in place. Like that. Then I'm going to sew the front of the face closed, so that's done. So gather that and sew that back through. Like that. So when it comes to the eyelids, what you've created is 2 little discs like this. And what you want to do is fold them in half. And actually, it will make it easier if you sew them closed first. So just do a couple of stitches like that, so that it's actually a flat shape like that you've got. And then what you want to do is position them to really hood these eyes in. So if you're using safety eyes, it'll be even easier because you'll have a definite curve that you can follow to put them in. But if you're going to go for embroidered eyes like me, same trick, fold it in half like this and just position them over the tops of your eyes to create those little hoods. Go Sew that into position at the front. Like that. I'm actually going to put another stitch in the back there too, so that just flattens that back. So that's one in. Same thing on the other side. And when you're doing the other side, all you need to do is be conscious of making it as symmetrical as possible. So use your rounds to mark that. And what I mean by that, I'm going to just sew that flat in the same way. Is you obviously want it to curve, like to be a mirror of that first one. So where you've got your first one sewn in, track across so that you can see where that round starts. Go in like that, across to there. Obviously, if you're a bit more nervous about sewing up, maybe you're new to doing it, you can always pin these pieces in place first and then sew them on once you're happy with the positioning. But the other thing to remember is if you're not happy first time round, you can always cut them off if you want to and go again. So what I'm going to do is bring this back to be in line with the other one. Like that. Make sure it's hooding over in the same way. There we go, and down at the front. Right, so that's my 2 eyelids in place. Like that. And now it comes to the hood. So with the hood, what you're going to be doing is lots of long stitches in order to create 2 pieces that look like this. I'm just going to quickly go through those so that you've got the stitches for reference here in one place. And my big tip is to keep your tension nice and loose when you're doing it. So what you're going to do, you've chained first, and then you're going to work back down that chain. So I'm just going to go through the different lengths of stitches so you've got this here for reference. So one that you're very familiar with will be the double crochet. So the British double crochet, you go in the stitch, yarn over to the point where you've got 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and through the 2 loops in one motion. That's the same as the US single crochet, but we're working in British terms here. So then next will be the half treble. So the half treble, you go yarn round hook first, in the stitch, yarn over to the point where you've got 3 loops on your hook, and you yarn over and come through all 3 in one motion like that. Then a treble, you'll go yarn round your hook first, in the stitch, yarn over. You've got 3 loops on your hook like you did last time, but this time yarn over and through the first 2, then yarn over again and through the last 2. So it's taller again, that's a treble. Then a double treble. So a double treble, we're going to go round the hook and then round the hook again. So you've gone twice round, just to recap that. So a double treble, round and round again. So you've got 2 wraps around your hook. In the stitch, yarn over. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. And this time you're going to yarn over, come through 2, yarn over again through the next 2, and then yarn over again and through the last 2. So you can see that's taller again than the last stitch that we did. So that is a double treble. And then the final stitch for me to show you is the triple treble. So exactly as it sounds, following that same thing, the triple treble, we're going to go 1, 2, 3 times around our hook before we begin. You go in the stitch, yarn over. You're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your hook. So yarn over, come through the first 2, yarn over through the next 2, yarn over through the 3rd set, and then yarn over and through the last set like that. And that is then the tallest stitch that you're going to be using. Now, my advice here is the looser actually that your tension is, the bigger that this is going to be in terms of the hood that goes on your snake. So don't worry about keeping this tight and keeping a really tight tension. There's no need to at all. Keep it nice and relaxed and just work these stitches so they're nice and loose and big. In contrast, obviously, to the snake where you wanted a closed fabric, this you can keep it nice and loose and have a bit more movement in those stitches because we're going to be sewing it on in one piece like that. Then when you get to the end, what you're going to do, which is quite unusual, is you're actually going to break yarn like that. And this is because what we want is for both sides to be right side facing, just to give you a neater finish to it. So you're going to break yarn and then we're actually going to rejoin and crochet from the other end again, rather than turning and going back on ourselves. That's just me being fussy, I think, because what I want is both sides to face forwards neatly. So what you'll then do is you'll go back to the other side and then you're going to work this side once again in the same way, crocheting into it. So then when it comes to sewing the hood into place, what you want to do is you've got two of the pieces that are the same, but you want to turn one of them upside down. And that's because what you've got here is obviously your, this is our starting chain that we've worked into half of it. And here you've got the ends of your stitches. You want the ends of your stitches to be on the outside of both when you sew them into position. So take that and use whichever end you've got the longest. You will have a few ends on here, but we can put them to good use. And then starting from the back of your eye, so you want this bit to connect to the back of your eye socket like that. Sew that into place and start from there. And again, you could pin, if you think you'll find it easier, you could choose to pin this in place before you sew it into place. And all you're going to do is position it down the back of the snake like that. So just to confirm, this is the chain edge that I'm sewing onto the actual snake. It's the end of the stitches edge that's on the other side. I've got it right side facing forward, so the front of my stitches are here. This is the backs of my stitches, so it curves round the back of the neck. So what I've done is I've secured it behind the eye like that, and then all I'm going to do is sew down . And I've taken a gradual curve. So generally speaking, it's in a straight line, but then just at the end, I've taken a bit of a curve in towards the front on the bottom. Like that. Fasten that end off. Then just neaten up the ends by sewing in all the other ends. I'm just going to flatten that end down, check that I'm happy with that positioning. So that is the way that it will sit behind the eye like that, down the snake. That one's gone. Sew in any of the ones that you've got here. And then once one's in place, all you'll do is make the other mirror it on the other side. So once you've got one in place, it's actually much easier then to get this other one just to mirror it. So same thing, that you're going to be wanting to sew the chain edge onto the snake, but make sure that it's that way around. So that's your right sides and that's your wrong sides. Make sure that your wrong sides are on the back, the same as this one. Then once you've got that in place and you're happy on both sides, the last thing that I would do is just to sew the hood directly, so with a couple of final stitches, directly onto the back of those eyes like that. So it feels like one continued shape that's coming off the front of those eyelids and onto that hood. So I've done that on one side, just going to do the same on that side, but have everything else sewn in place first and just do that bit last, with a couple of stitches between the two, because that means that as a shape, the hood comes like in one piece directly off the back of those eyelids. And that is Mei the Cobra complete. So I hope that helps with sewing up. Anyone that's put off by the idea of how much sewing up that is, you could actually crochet those longer stitches directly on. If you were feeling confident about your positioning, there's nothing stopping you crocheting them directly into the snake. But I know that a few people would find that harder than actually making the pieces and then being able to sew them on and reposition them and pin them as you go along. So all I've got to do is cut these ends off, and the snake's been designed so that it will sit up out of its coil. So if you're thinking about how to position it, what you need to do is position it round neatly like that, and then the neck will sit up and out of the coil like that. So it will actually sit up in this coiled position for you. Make sure you've got plenty of stuffing in the neck so that it will sit upright rather than flatten down. So I hope you enjoy making Mei the Cobra, one that actually I love in cream. Despite obviously loving the original hand dye, I absolutely love it in the remake in cream. One that I think would look fabulous in lots of different colours, or even as a scrap project where you use all of your ends so it contains all the different colours.